Hi, I'm Colin Hung with Swaay.Health, and we are thrilled to bring you exclusive insights from some of the brightest minds in healthcare marketing. Today's episode, we're going to dive into a topic that's one of my favorite, geographic information systems, and we have the amazing Dr. Este Geraghty with us, from the Chief Medical Officer at Esri. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Colin. I'm always excited to talk to you. You make it fun.
It is fun, and I love GIS, as you know. It is something that I find it's totally fascinating. But this is a new context for you and I to be talking about this, because we're going to be talking about it in the context of marketing in healthcare. But before we dive deep, can you maybe share with our audience just a little overview of what GIS is?
Sure. Well, maybe people don't even know what the letters stand for.
Yep.
It is a geographic information system. And honestly, it's like any other information system you'd be familiar with, but it's about geography. So the difference is you add geographic knowledge and context. So what does that mean? It means that you can start to look geographically at where you have differences in lifestyles, behaviors, health outcomes even, and you can figure out through analysis what may be the root causes of those conditions and how you might go about solving them. So taking a geographic perspective for these things actually changes your whole thought process and what you might do.
Once you see something on a map, it forever changes your perspective.
Right, and doesn't everybody want to look at a map and they become immediately engaged because they want to, where do I live, or where does my family member live? I mean, you can't help it. And so you're already drawn into the data, and then you start asking more questions. Well, I wonder what would happen if this, or I wonder if that condition is also true.
Amazing. And that's actually what you have at your booth, where people are able to type in their own zip codes and see all the information about their neighborhoods.
Yes, it becomes fascinating, and it's often validating for people, like, yeah, I knew there was some difference and I couldn't quite put my finger on it, or yeah, that kind of describes, who we are and what we care about.
Right.
So yes.
So let's talk about this, put into context for me, GIS from a marketer standpoint. How can marketers leverage this technology?
Well, what do marketers care about? Data.
Right. We do.
And you're using the data to do what? You want to tailor your messages, put them through the right channels to reach the audiences you care about.
Absolutely.
Right? But sometimes for the things that you're trying to message, it actually matters where you're messaging them to. So you may want to provide, say, specific service communication to an underserved audience, and you need to know more about them. Where exactly do they live? What channels do they get their information from? And what are the characteristics that you might appeal to? Are they more brand conscious, or do they care about trust in the organizations they're working with? That's going to change the tone of your message.
And is that kind of the information that I can get through GIS technology?
Absolutely, that and about 15,000 more data variables.
Okay, okay. Can you give us some examples of maybe how marketers have deployed or used GIS?
Yes, absolutely. I have a bunch of them, but one that I think will resonate with people is not a health example, but it'll lay a good foundation.
For sure.
This is from the U.S. Census Bureau.
Okay.
So we had a decennial census in 2020. In the midst of a pandemic.
Right.
And think about what the Census Bureau does. They do a lot of their counting by mail.
Right.
It's the most efficient way to get the information. But for those who don't respond by mail, they need to go door to door.
Okay.
Okay, imagine what that's like to have people coming to your door that you don't know with a mask on in a pandemic when you're all supposed to be isolated.
Okay.
Okay, so this was a really difficult concept to get over. So the census wanted to increase their response by mail.
All right.
Well, they actually used data and geographic analysis to first understand where is there a high risk of non-response by mail. Then they used all of that lifestyle behavior and trust information to tailor the messages for the communities in different places that are unlikely to respond by mail.
Okay.
Sometimes it was as simple as providing messages in another language. Sometimes it was appealing to folks' other sensibilities. Like in one place, they used a banner to talk about how this money actually comes back to your community when we know
what your community is made up of, what their
who's
needs
there,
are. Yeah.
then you can get some of the supports that you need. So it was for some people thinking money in our pockets in a way, to
Right.
better the community. But they were actually very successful. They called this. I'm going to forget the words for the acronym, but it was called ROAM.
Okay.
And they did a really good job with that.
So they were able to be much more focused and targeted in their ultimate activity
Yes.
and be more effective. So
Yes.
they didn't sort of blanket everyone with the same approach.
Yeah, because I was worried we were going to get a really bad count for the census.
Right.
And even in health, that would affect all of us because we rely on that demographic data.
Talk to me a little bit about some of the profile works that you do, because when I go to Esri and I look at some of the ways that marketers are using it, there's all this wonderful profiling that you've already pre-built into your system. Can you talk to me about that?
You bet. So our system is called Tapestry Segmentation. And there's a lot of ways to slice and dice it, but ultimately we end up with 67 different market segments. They all have cute names like laptops and lattes, right? This is a young professionals group, spend a lot of time in coffee shops. Maybe they're single and they're probably newer to the workforce. And then you might have the Pacific Heights group. This is an upscale group. They own their own homes. They often work in healthcare or managerial positions. And they like to travel and they watch CNN.
Wow, okay. So you've built all these psychographic and actual profiles
Yes.
into your technology.
Yes.
And as a marketer, I can leverage that. I don't have to go and build it on my own. And
You don't.
it's geo-based.
It's geo-based. So you can put in, you said zip code earlier, but this is available at the block group level.
Oh, wow.
So you can
Okay.
really understand what people are like at that level or at any level going bigger.
So are there any hospitals or healthcare organizations leveraging GIS on the marketing side?
Absolutely. I'll give you two examples. I'll start with a public health example because
Okay.
I think it's pretty cool. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, they got wind of what US Census was doing. And of course, they had a lot of responsibility in terms of vaccinating
Okay.
for the pandemic, and they wanted to improve vaccine confidence.
Okay.
As we all know, there's a lot of hesitancy going on, and so this really is a marketing problem.
Right.
Right? And so they wanted to be able to understand sentiments around vaccination for COVID, but actually for all
For all
vaccinations.
vaccines. Okay.
And then they wanted to be able to target their messaging based on that information. And so they not only did that at a national level, but they built tools for state and local governments to do it as well.
Amazing.
So very similar to what US Census did. In the healthcare environment, like for a hospital, they're using this kind of information to, like when they grow their health system, they build a new clinic, how do they reach out to people to inform them of what's available and let them know in terms that resonate with them that this would be a good place for them to receive care, right? It's like a secret weapon to fend off their competitors and draw in a new patient base.
So not only could they use GIS to optimize the location of these new clinics or these new facilities that they may be considering, but once they have chosen a location, they can now know, to best reach the audience that's in the immediate vicinity, I might need to do these things and use these channels over other channels.
You're getting so good at spatial thinking. I mean, honestly, what you did right there was you started an entire workflow, right? Because you mentioned site selection. So part of a decision-making process when you're thinking spatially is, how do I choose among all of my different criteria for where I want a new clinic, the right place? Because it's not obvious if you just look on a map.
That's very true.
It really isn't. We want to be evidence-based, not intuitive.
Right.
And then exactly what you said, once you have that location, you want to know, like you can do this within, say, a 15-minute drive time or a walk time to this new clinic and say, okay, well, this isn't a boundary anybody's familiar with. This isn't a zip code or a census tract. Doesn't matter. With geography, you can say, give me that walk time or drive time area and tell me who lives there.
Right.
What's the predominant segment or predominant top 3 segments, and now I can target my messaging.
And what streaming service should I go advertise on? In
Yes,
other words,
exactly.
you have that information.
Exactly.
So we've talked about how large organizations can use it. We've talked about how healthcare organizations can use it. What about B2B organizations? Can vendors like who are here at HIMSS, is there a way that they could leverage GIS?
Oh, well, I mean, the answer is going to be yes, of course. I think we forget sometimes that we're always asking where questions.
Okay.
You know, where are my best customers? How can I replicate that somewhere else? There's actually a geographic analytic technique that we call a similarity search.
Okay.
So maybe you've been really successful and you found like one fantastic customer and you want to replicate that
in other areas.
You can do what we call a similarity search and find the best places for you to go and try and penetrate a new market.
But that's similar to the one that you're in. So it sounds like very much like what Facebook allows you to do with some of their advertising. Say, I want to look alike, sound alike, a cohort of audience to the one I've been successful in.
Yes.
And you're saying I could do that potentially with geography.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So where can people go, or what's the best place that people can go to sort of learn more about GIS and how they can leverage it?
Well, so first I want to be really upfront and honest here. GIS is not like plug and play. It's not, I mean, we've made it as intuitive as it can be, but this is complex analytic software.
Okay.
So like any new software tool, you've got to learn it.
Okay.
But we made that easier.
All right.
We built a health GIS curriculum that is about 37 hours of training, but in bite-sized pieces. So you can take a little half-hour lesson or a 1-hour lesson, and you can start to become familiar with the tools and the way of thinking, which I think is most important. And that's totally free. You can get that on our website, and I think we'll provide the link for everybody.
We'll put that link right here. Yeah.
All right here. So I think learning a couple of lessons and getting familiar would be a good step. Once you've done that, and you'll already have a trial version of the software to play with, start pulling in data sets from, I'm going to say this again, we can put another link up maybe?
You can put another link right up here, right?
The other link is going to be the Living Atlas of the World.
Ooh, Living Atlas.
Free data, about 80,000 or more data sets, not all of them health, but all of them relevant, from authoritative resources. So you could start playing with that and thinking about communities you want to message to and how you might use the information based on, you know, what we sort of shared today to get started.
Dr. Geraghty, it is always a pleasure to have you on the program. Totally enjoy talking with you, and you've shared so much great information today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
This is Colin Hung for Swaay.Health, and hey, if you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, we'd love for you to head over to Swaay.Health, that's Sway with 2 A's, where we've got a lot more content like the one you're seeing now. I'm Colin Hung for Swaay.Health. We'll catch you on the next video.